Okay, welcome to the fourth and final part of the animated series Faction Pack Review. This part will contain my final thoughts and thoughts on the models themselves. So let's start off with the D7 battlecruisers, both the Klingon and the Romulan, because they are identical. That's a bit of a problem. They're identical. Yeah. Okay, let's first start off. WizKids initially made everything blue, and then they made everything silver. Funny thing is the animated series had blue D7 battlecruisers, and they had silver battlecruisers, so this kind of works, them being silver. The paint job is actually very, very nice. It's a base silver with subtle gold details, and like a lot of this is gold. Mainly like the triangles and stuff are all gold, and that's like a lot of triangle painting that they had to do. The logo is a yellow circle with two green lower triangles and then a red triangle at the top. The detailing is correct in response to like where the bridge is and the orientation of the engines. I know they made that mistake a lot on the older models. I actually have a Katinga model here, which is the engine's on backwards. And actually, I'll get to that later. Because these aren't D7 battlecruisers, these models. These are technically Katinga models. But the game uses them the same, because most Trek fans can't actually tell the difference between them either. Main difference being D7 battlecruisers have like a wider top bridge section, like that pizza slice shape is a bit wider, and the wings don't have the triangles on them very well. Like they're flat, they aren't raised. And actually, D7 battlecruisers don't have a forward torpedo bay. It's actually apparently a deflector dish. When I saw this paint job, I thought that this was the same paint job that we got on the IKS Groth, being the reprint version of it. However, the silver is slightly lighter on the Garoth, and the secondary silver, because there's two silvers, there was a dark silver and a bright silver on both models. The bright silver being the primary color, and then these parts near on the back top of the ship, these two panels, are kind of hard to describe. My guess is they're just above the impulse engine. They have the darker silver. The darker silver on the new model is a lot darker than the darker silver on the Garoth. I would even describe the darker silver on the new models as technically being gunmetal color, which is a dark gray, metallic gray. Second note is that silver also appears on the struts holding up the engines. And that's when we get to sort of our next difference, which is it's really hard to see this, but the engines in the Garoth have a definite gold detailing, whereas on the new D7s it looks more of a dark gray silver, sort of like the gunmetal, mixed with maybe hints of gold. My point being is if you buy the Garoth and you buy this pack, from a distance, like if you're walking by a shelf, you won't be able to tell the difference between the two models. But if you pick up the two models and hold them under a light, you will be able to tell the difference between them. For that reason, what I've done is I took the Katinga model that I got from, I can't remember the name of the ship. It's the one that was like the long-range mission episode of TNG where they pretend that the Klingons are in command of this Enterprise to try and deceive these Klingons in cryostasis. Anyway, this model, this Katinga model that I got from a while ago, is green, and the engines are on backwards. So what I did was I decided to say that this would be the Romulan D7 battlecruiser because it's green. And then that way, all three of the new D7 battlecruisers that I got in this kit, I've declared to be Klingon D7 battlecruisers. So we're talking about the Divisor, the Cloths, and then the Garoth. And then I took the lighter colored D7 battlecruiser model, which was originally the Garoth, and I'm calling this the Katinga. So that way I have some consistency in my factions. Which brings me now to the... Oh, by the way, models, love them. By the way, I love them a lot. Which brings me now to the Enterprise. There is a problem with my Enterprise, which is the salsa section is tilted. Looks like someone, some giant leaned up against the Enterprise and like put his elbow on the top of the salsa section and stood there too long. Because it's crooked, and it makes it look like the engines are crooked until you actually straighten the ship out and you realize, no, the salsa section is horrifically crooked. In the packaging, I thought that the paint job on the ship was identical to that of the Mirror Universe Enterprise, the ISS. Because the original one they released was a tan color with a blue bridge. And then the ISS model had a yellow bridge. This model looks like that with just some extra black detailings. Like they actually put some effort into making some details on the salsa section. And when you actually look at the model, they've got like windows and stuff drawn on there in black now. The details aren't actually that good. They don't always line up with the grooves. Some of them are a bit sloppy. But what's interesting to note is that some of the other differences are the engine details, I think, are different. The struts that hold up the engines, though, don't have that black inner color to them. The real weird part about this is it's actually a metallic paint job. Like all those silver ships, it's sort of a metallic sand. Like, it's hard to see on the sand color because it's just a tan sand color. It's hard to decipher that it's metallic. It might just be very lustrous, or it might just be the imperfections in the color that give it that sort of gleam. I'm not quite sure, but you can definitely see it on the salsa section and the Bizarre collectors and the rear part of the warp engines. They are definitely a metallic color. So WizKids continues to make things metallic. The real head scratcher about this Enterprise model. WizKids made all their started making all the Federation ships silver. And they took the original series Enterprise and they re-released it in a reprint and made it silver. But then they made this one tan. If you've actually watched the animated series, you'd know that the animated series Enterprise actually is silver. It's not tan, it's a silver ship. And they gave us the tan model. So my suggestion is, if you buy this, what you should do is you should purchase either one of those prize ships that came with the Silver Constitution class, or purchase the reprint which came with the Silver Constitution match, and just trade the models out, so that way you get your silver. I've actually ordered a USS Intrepid, so I'm going to probably swap the models out, so whenever I run the animated series, I'll be flying the silver model, just so it looks right. Again, you got the scaling issue. This is the tiny prize model, and then you got the D7s, which are to scale with the movie Enterprise. So it's a bit weird. Again, so moving on to the final thoughts from the models. Models, they're good. They're good. Paint jobs are pretty good. Well, my Enterprise was warped, but from what I've seen, every once in a while you get a manufacturing error and someone's ship ends up with a twisted engine or a twisted bridge or something. I'm just glad the thing didn't break when I took it out of the box. The models are pretty good, with the exception that the Enterprise is the wrong color and mine was warped. The cards. The cards are competitive. There's no bad card in this set. There's only a few cards I'd even just say were just okay. The ships are all tier 3. Don't expect to be putting up a huge fight against the tougher ships. Don't run this thing up against Borg. You're probably gonna die. Heck, the D7 battlecruisers probably could barely stand their own against a swarm of Vorchas. This is good for era-specific games, or if you want a bunch of support ships. If you're a fan of the original series, you might want to pick this up. If you're a fan of like original series battles and stuff, like doing those, then yeah, sure. These might have a tougher time standing up against the big the big boys in the game, big boys and girls. So basically, the issue with this faction pack, there are two big issues. One that I pointed out in almost all of the videos is the cards don't work on all the ships. A lot of these are Klingon only, Federation only. Some of them don't thematically fit on the other ships. The thing about all the other faction packs, well, most of the faction packs, with the exception of the Motley Fleet. The Motley Fleet had a lot of exclusives, but the exclusives kind of made sense. Is when you buy the Romulan faction pack, you expect to be able to run almost any of the upgrades on any of the ships. However, there are a few exceptions, like in the Romulan faction pack, there was like a card which only worked on the Derridecks. There were cards that only worked on ships that were like 4 hull or more, but you could at least run it on 2 of the ships, right? And you could run most of the stuff on the other ships. It felt like a fleet in a box, as they advertise. And I got the Motley Fleet. I also got the Borg pack. Borg pack, you could throw almost anything on anything, right? With the exception of some of the weapons. Like, there's always 1 or 2 cards. And the thing is this faction pack comes with 3 factions, not including Mud, which is technically a 4th. And just doesn't feel like you're supposed to mix any of the cards. It doesn't feel like you should be running... Like, you literally can't put any of the Klingon crew cards on the Enterprise. I think the weapons should have been all the D7 weapons should have been multi-faction. Even though it makes sense that the Magnetic Pulse is a Klingon weapon because it was a Klingon weapon. This pack feels off. With the Romulan pack, if you bought it and didn't own any Romulan ships except for... Yeah, if you didn't own any Romulan ships and you bought the Romulan pack, you were good to go for Romulans. If you bought the Borg pack and you had no Borg ships, you were good to go. I mean, it'd be a bit expensive because the Borg pack came with 3 high-tier ships, 1 low-tier ship. This pack, it's 4 low-tier ships. If you want to play era-specific games, like let's say you pick up a starter set and then you pick up this, okay. You can have some fun casual games. Problem is, you're lacking the main stage warships. So this pack would be good if you only owned the first starter, which came with a tier 5 Klingon ship, a tier 3 or 4 Derridecks, and a tier 4 Enterprise. And then you bought this pack, you'd be able to get a good support ship for each of these. But that's what this pack is. It's mainly support ships. Yeah, it's just support ships. It lacks the kick. However, it is a unique pack. I think it could be used to draw more people into the game because of how cute and cool the cards look. And it is definitely something that a collector should get. This will stand out in your collection. I don't think you need more than 1 though, because a lot of these cards are unique, and the generics aren't really that fantastic except for Worthy Opponent and maybe the generic D7s. So I'd say go out, buy one, have fun. Thank you for watching.